Today we sit down with Mahesh Muralidhar, the operator who helped scale Canva and Airtasker. We talk Canva, New Zealand startups, and how Mahesh is on a mission to make New Zealand a happier and more prosperous place.
We are back in your life, and today we've got Mahesh Muralidhar, the founder of Phase 1 Ventures and who was an early employee in Canva, Airtasker. Mahesh, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Pumped. Pumped.
It's good, eh?
Yeah, 100%.
So-
Energy's so good.
Oh, look, it's Friday morning. It's raining
It's
outside, but I'm warm inside.
Oh my goodness.
So, Mahesh, the podcast, there's two ways we can learn, right? We can talk about theory or we can learn from other people and kind of their journey. So I don't want to muck around at all. I want to hear Canva is a huge company now. So many use it in their day-to-day life. The PowerPoint. Everyone just thought the PowerPoint would survive forever.
I know. Every time I used to say to our marketing team, like, can you send me the PowerPoint? They'd look at me and be like, are you serious, mate?
Tell us, what was it like in Canva?
Yeah, look, it's one of the coolest experiences of my life.
Yeah.
Now when I travel in airports all around the world and a screen's open and you see Canva, right? Like it's an incredible experience.
Cool feeling.
It is an incredible, like all over the world.
Yeah.
I joined as number 25, one of the first leaders. We were in a small little room. It was worth 20 million. Today, it's 4,000 people and worth 40 billion.
Yeah.
Right. And that kind of experience and journey is fantastic. You learn so much because when something grows from being a child to an adult at hyper speed, it's just mistakes, lessons, nonstop. Things are breaking constantly. You guys have just moved. You guys have just moved. Now imagine doing this every 3 months.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Constantly. Like, not enough meeting rooms, not enough bathrooms, not enough people. More customers want stuff.
We've run out of laptops. What is going on?
Yeah, exactly. And this is across engineering, finance, all of that. And I had the incredible opportunity to work with a visionary founder, Melanie Perkins, right? When I joined, I was 31, finished my MBA, and I thought I knew all of that. And Mel was 23, a young woman from Perth, her partner in crime, Cliff Obrecht, Westie from Perth as well. And, coming with an MBA, having worked in a lot of different countries and stuff, you think, I know all of that. These guys were a whole other level.
Yeah.
Because they had done the stuff, grassroots, they were Olympic athletes at Commerce.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They really understood what materiality is, like what's really important. Because they'd actually worked in the belly of the beast, built stuff, grown stuff. I always make this joke, this quip. Now, if Mel and Cliff wanted to speak to the US president, they could.
Yeah.
Like you build a $40 billion business, you want to make a phone call, you know how to do it.
Yeah.
Right. So incredible experience, very powerful experience, and a real joy for me to come back home and share those lessons because it's something, we're awesome entrepreneurs, New Zealanders, but we don't see scale.
Yeah.
We don't see big ambition, bold ideas, etc. Right? So I go back to University of Auckland now and I go, hey, I was in your shoes 30 years ago. And
Last week.
And I think it's quite powerful.
Yeah.
Because hey, I was a broke university student.
I sat in those seats.
Yeah, exactly right. Right. And this is my story. This is my truth. Last year, Canva did a secondary sale. That means it sold a sliver of its equity. $2 billion flushed into the Sydney economy. And that's the kind of stories that we need to understand and appreciate so we can do so much more.
Well, I'm keen to dig into a little bit around your purpose and vision now around making New Zealand 5% better every year. But I'm very keen to just dig into Canva a little bit more because one thing we've been lucky enough to talk to a lot of founders, a lot of people who've done really incredible things. And I think one thing that limits a lot of Kiwis is actually just being too sensible and what is possible, what is not possible. Tell me what it was like when you joined. So what was the mindset? What were they thinking? Were they like, we want to build this $40 billion thing? Did it just happen? Tell us about it.
Yeah, look, I have this very powerful moment that should be part of a TV show when again, we were in a small room, and Mel, she's 23, and she's one of the world's top executives now, right? But you're learning how to communicate all of these things. And I remember her trying to communicate her vision to us. And I'm right next to the whiteboard, and she's drawing buildings. We're 20 people. She's drawing buildings on the whiteboard. And I'm like, what are you drawing? And she said, this is Canva for docs. This is Canva for print. This is Canva for business. And it took me like about 2 minutes to realize, oh, you're drawing a campus.
Right? Yeah.
And if you go to Sydney and Surrey Hills, there is a campus now. $3 billion, $4 billion of revenue. I think it's got $6 billion in the bank. Mel and Cliff and Cam can do whatever they want. But she started that journey when she was 18. A lot of people don't know this. There's a business called Fusion Books, which was designed for high school yearbooks. They spent 4 years in a small little apartment in Perth with clunky software that they'd built, printing out textbooks for high schools, which was designed for a software tool, which was designed for high school yearbooks, selling that, which laid the foundation for an imagination for Canva would be. And it's that early journey that a lot of people don't see. And also then you have this crazy ambition, right? Like, I'm going to go change the world. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I mean, again, to James's point around Kiwis not thinking big enough, you know, you've worked around the world, you've worked in these big companies. You know, if we look at Canva, do you think that when you come back to New Zealand, people don't have that kind of ambition of scale? Or and if so, why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think it's really important not to beat ourselves up about it, right? Like, it's true. And there are really good reasons for it. One, you need role models. Australia needed role models too. Australia needed Atlassian first, and then, you know, Canva, Safeguard, a whole bunch of businesses. So you need a few businesses, a few founders, a few like Peter Becks to like break out, and we can go do this thing. In the last 3 weeks, New Zealand has had a massive announcement around Halter, a massive announcement around Tracksuit, and Aurora. These are 3 startups that have raised accumulated, I'd say, around 200 mil, right? Across the 3 of them. These are 3 Kiwi businesses going for gold. Suddenly that starts to get normalized. It's still probably about 5 to 7 years away. So you need those people, those leaders to kick off. And then for the investor class to actually believe this is true. Like, I believe this is true. I like, this is my truth. My wealth, everything is made on this thing. Trust me, my partners, my friends and all those around me were like, oh, good on you. Like, you know, like, good
you
on
go
you.
get it, buddy.
Like, and now they're looking at it going, oh. And so it takes time for people to believe in this high risk, high return model. So we just have to go on that journey.
When you look at like New Zealand's culture compared to, say, the US with the American dream, in New Zealand we talk a lot about like tall poppy syndrome, and do you think from a cultural element there is parts to it as well, compared to I'm going to go and build this big thing in the States, and like I'm really open about talking about it?
Yeah, there's a couple of things here. And again, I think it's really important not to beat ourselves up about it. It's to understand what's going on and then do something about it, right? So a couple of things. So when the Gulf War happened, when the US moved into Iraq because of weapons of mass destruction, their claims, Australia took a decision to partner with the US. While we made a decision to go, we're going to stick to a moral high ground. Right. Which all of us are really proud of. A lot of us are really proud of. But then that gave America and American kids even more access to the US. While like through immigration policy, a whole bunch of stuff. Education, etc. And we kept being connected to the United Kingdom and Europe. And arguably, America is a far more powerful growth engine and has more ambition, more consumerism, right? So then like a little bit of a delta started to like split. That's one thing. My other opinion on the tall poppy syndrome is when you're a small country, you know everybody. You know everybody, right? So in a large country, you can walk away from people. I have my posse. I'm fine. You're not doing so well. Okay, but we're good, right? That allows for more risk taking. More. But in a small country, when you know everybody, you're nervous about people not doing well because you could end up in that position. So you are preordained to address inequity, which is wonderful. Makes us more compassionate, makes us seem fairer, makes us seem kinder, all of this stuff. But it's a counterweight on growth.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not a bad thing. It's actually a wonderful thing. But we need to make sure we go against the grain on some of our enterprises, like Denmark, Norway, Sweden have enough growth, like shoots, and enough growth value, then we can fulfill that imagination that we have of an even more equitable society.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense.
It does. It does. I also think that with the tall poppy syndrome, I think a lot of it and people's thoughts on kind of how people are doing, how they should feel about it, is a reflection of how the economy's doing. And it may seem like we're a little bit more hard on ourselves or downbeat, or we've lost that, that innovation mindset recently. But I kind of go, I think it's still there. And I think it's been working really hard in the background. And once you get some fairer trade wins that come through in terms of some economic positivity, it won't seem like we're so down on ourselves.
Yeah, I agree. We also need to be more open to 20% of the New Zealand population lives overseas.
Yeah.
Right? We have a whole bunch of people doing incredible things. And we tend to, once someone's a king and queen in New Zealand, we listen to them.
Yeah.
Right. Bowen Pan, who just came back home, he was the person who created Facebook Marketplace. Right. We have so many people doing amazing things overseas, so many Kiwis, and we don't engage with them. We don't connect with them. They don't know how to, they want to give back. When I was overseas, nobody spoke to me.
Why do you think that is?
Because we kind of, that whole king and queen mentality in New Zealand, once you're there, why would you want to change it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like if I'm ruling the roost, then, like I'm comfortable, and it's not maybe a conscious thing. So again, we have to go against the grain and start talking to Kiwis who are doing global things and asking them questions.
Yeah.
Like they want to help. When I was overseas, I wanted to hey, there's some stuff in it. But when they come back home, it takes them so long for people to go, what did you do?
Oh,
why did you
that marketplace thing?
Yeah.
I've seen that floating around.
We don't even, a lot of Kiwis and Kiwi business leaders don't even know how to have that conversation.
Yeah.
Right. But so we've got to learn how to have that conversation in regards to global best practice.
Yeah. I think if you take it a step further, it's a really bizarre situation where we have people who are educated in New Zealand. It's a small place, let's be honest, right? So they go overseas to get some overseas experience that you literally leave as a university student with a ticket, which is your plane ticket, and a ticket to get a job, which is a university degree, and almost no other training, right? We outsource all of our training to companies overseas where they get global experience, global growth, global roles, much wider scope of training. But then we penalize them by charging them interest on their student loan while they're over there. I'm like, we literally send people overseas to train. Most of them come home. I'm like, if you just thought about it from a logical perspective, I'm like, stop charging people interest on their student loan if they go overseas. They're going to come back. And if they don't, and a couple of people never pay it back, well, that's just the cost of doing business,
I mean, we talk to so many Kiwis, and a lot of them do have plans to go overseas, but they all say the same thing, right? They're all like I want to have a family, and I want that family to grow up in New Zealand. So I think it's a really valid point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think the first step we need to do is, so the current government actually talked about creating a minister of the diaspora.
Yeah.
And just setting up that community and really owning that channel. Because right now, Kiwis overseas don't even feel represented.
Yeah.
Right. So let's just do that first. And to be honest, there's a lot of taxpayer dollars being lost, right? The country invests so much from a health, education perspective. You get trained up as a uni student. And actually a good bunch don't come back. Like a lot of my mates who are doctors are in Perth and Aussie and UK, and there's a reticence to come back.
I think the medical is that profession, New Zealand versus overseas, is something which is its own needs to be addressed, because that is like, even I know, like we lose doctors, nurses,
Yeah.
everything, like straight to Australia,
Yeah.
even to finalize their degrees.
Yeah. So, but we can do something about this, right? So, and we must.
How do you fix that?
I think firstly, you'd get that minister of the diaspora, right? You'd get representation. You'd get travel. Like in Sydney, where would you go? You'd go Sydney, Melbourne, London, New York, LA. That's it, right? Those 5 ports, you'd have regular engagement with the single goal of, hey, this is what's happening in New Zealand. Share views. And coming back to New Zealand going, hey, this is what's happening in, this is what they're saying, right? And just engaging that, like making sure that representation engagement occurs. Do that first. I don't want to overstate then what you would do, because you want to listen and understand how do we do this even better first.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Mahesh, you are back in New Zealand now.
Yes.
And I'm very keen to talk about what you are doing in New Zealand, and we'll do that after this break. Hey guys, I want to work with you to build a financial plan. The catch is I want to document the whole thing, share your story. If that's of interest, click the show notes below and apply. Now, back to the episode.
So Mahesh, you're back in New Zealand. What are you working on now? What's next?
Yeah, I came back home 5 years ago during COVID, and I told my wife 12 years ago that I would come back home. It's a funny story. So I told my wife 12 years ago on a second date, she's Aussie, that, hey, I'm going to come back home and serve the country. So many years later, we're in Sydney, good life, Canva, startup land. I said, hey, time to come back to New Zealand, right? And she's like, what are you talking about? And I said, I told you.
Yeah, you
on
remember?
On a second date. And she said, I thought you were just trying to hit on me, right?
No, I was trying to hit on the country.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. So my mission in life is to make New Zealand an even happier place. And I think it's a 2-step goal program. We have an imagination. We need way more jobs, high productive jobs.
Yeah.
So that imagination of Denmark, Sweden, Norway that we have in our heads, which is New Zealand, gets fulfilled. That's arguably a 5% GDP growth every year for the next 10 years. There's a bunch of stuff we can do for that. And the second goal is social cohesion. You do number 1, number 2 becomes a lot easier, right? In that growth piece, we need a few more canvas in New Zealand. That's one of the core pillars. So I came back home, and in a living room, I started giving free strategic support to a whole bunch of early stage founders. And that's what I've done for the last 5 years.
Yeah, cool.
I haven't had an income. I've just, which has been like really intriguing.
Yeah.
Thanks to the Canva equity, but really odd not to get paid for 5 years.
Like,
Anyway, but I've just been passing on a whole bunch of my stories and building a powerful early stage founder community. That has become phase 1, which is an early stage fund.
Yeah.
85% of the early stage investments from phase 1 now have raised global institutional venture capital, which is the layman's way of saying that is a bunch of early stage founders are going great guns way more than any kind of incubating faculty has ever delivered in the world. So that's pretty cool.
And does phase 1 have a specific niche? Like, you've worked obviously in tech previously.
Yeah.
Are you tech focused? Are you science? Like, what are you thinking?
Yeah. So no. So the definition of a startup is something that aims to grow 5% week on week.
Yeah.
It's that growth rate which actually defines what a startup is, right? Because that is married with the capital model of venture capital.
Yeah.
Like you have people
Capital
who
as
take
a
bank
strategy.
loans, etc.
Yeah.
Like these are financial institutions who are like, hey, I believe I'm going to bet on you when you're like 3 people, you're going to build Uber.
Yeah.
It's a high risk, high return. So it's that growth rate which actually defines a startup. We've invested into software, hardware, whole bunch of stuff. The key principles that I look for, customer obsession.
Yeah.
And customer obsession takes 12 to 18 months of spending time with a customer, not building, doing discovery.
Yeah.
Right? If you want to have any chance of building a love product, unlike you guys, where you guys are in service, you can have a conversation with your customer. If something goes wrong, you can fix it.
Yeah.
A product has to nail the problem. There's no conversation. It has to be a loved product.
Yeah.
For you to build product and problem intuition, it takes 12 to 18 months of really having the humility to hear the stories of the customer. On the other side, you have to have global ambition. and it's arguably a US first approach. So those two things I look for, and it doesn't come along that often.
Yeah. And then just to kind of change tact a little bit, because we've talked about previously on the podcast, I almost see the access to capital for New Zealand businesses, for startups to a degree, as a bit of an advantage. And I mean, by that, I mean the lack of capital. Whereas if you take the other end of the spectrum, you go SoftBank, where it's capital as a strategy, right? And I know it's frustrating for founders, but it's probably that kind of incubation period where you don't have the money and you've just got to we have to nail this, right?
You are absolutely right.
I mean, to a degree. And then you need the cash.
No, you are absolutely right. I have met so many founders in the US from YC, Y Combinator, the best supposedly incubating faculty, where Airbnb, Dropbox, a whole bunch of these guys came from. They were okay. Like Kiwi founders who make it in the US, who get to the US, they are streets ahead. Because to your point, they are leaner. They make so much more out of the resource they have, and they believe I've got one shot.
Yeah.
You look at Craig from Halter, Amber from Nextwork, Harry and Wild from Codis, all of these guys are world-class operators. Peter Beck, you look at what he's done with Rocket Lab on an oily rag relative to anybody else in the space industry. So you are absolutely right. This is a huge advantage for us. We just, again, it's that, hey, go play that US global game.
Yeah. And to do that, the capital will be there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Look, and it's interesting. It's definitely been a learning journey for me. The Phase One founders mean the world to me. I have, for the last 5 years, I've lived their lives, their heartbreaks, the heroic journeys. It's been, and because I came back home to make sure the country's in an even better spot, and these are our heroes. These are the people, right? Like these are a group of the people. So I'm all in on helping them. Yeah. Capital raising is a completely separate skill set that they need to learn, and Kiwi founders who want to go big have to learn.
Yeah.
And where is the capital coming from?
So initially, your first capital is local, right? So the major venture capital players so easily your first round is friends and family.
It's mom and dad.
Yeah, mom and dad. You're like 100 to 300K, pulling something together. You're right. And then the next capital, angels, but venture capital in New Zealand gets in quite early because you have to. Right? It's Blackbird, GD1, Icehouse, Airtree. Those are the four major players and who have clear evidence, especially in software. They've taken bets and it's worked out. So it's one of those guys. Arguably, the next check is very likely it's going to be a US-led check. These guys will put in, but it's probably going to be a US check. So it's 1, 2, 3 is US.
Cool. Okay. And so you're 5 years in, you're working with these founders.
Yeah.
Tell us what you think, the future is going to look like. If we go, 2035, maybe 2050, what does that look like?
So I am in the media, in the press, saying that 6 unicorns will come from Phase One, right? So $6 billion businesses will come from Phase One. So a unicorn is a company that's still privately held, which is worth $1 billion. It's a good point, James. I haven't really put thought to this just in this perspective. I mean, with that prediction, you would think there are 10 to 20 very high growth tech companies in New Zealand that are hiring that have around 400 to about 800 people working. That's a powerful thing, right? Like suddenly parents, community members, schools are taking notice. You have world-class engineers. So one of the biggest things that happened in Sydney was Google Sydney starting in Sydney, because then suddenly you had world-class product build happening. So it's a shift. It's a powerful shift for a small country.
Yeah, I know with I think it's in Denmark where they have a really successful company with a weight loss drug, and they had to start to measure the success, like GDP growth with and without, just because it became so weighted. And to your point, the economic impact of some of these companies growing and thriving in New Zealand is amazing. I think one of the questions though is how do you retain those companies in New Zealand opposed to moving overseas? Do you think about that much? Is it a bad thing? What are your thoughts?
I mean, if Canva had been in New Zealand, it'd be 15% of New Zealand GDP, right? Like, so that's a fairly strong thing. My current play is I don't care. Like, I just want the role models. I just want the stories.
Yeah.
Right. I just want Kiwis to be going great guns so that all of you, the next generation looks at them and go, oh, I can do this too.
Yeah.
So I'm not so worried about keeping them, but there are some very simple policy things that can be done to keep them. People will stay here if it makes sense from a tax perspective.
Yeah.
If you have the required talent, and tax is around obviously corporate tax, but also things like equity. In a high scale, high growth product company, the way you think about equity has to be different. Currently, equity in New Zealand is thought of as a salary. And you can't. You need to be seen as a specific type of asset class because you can't pay tax on something that's not realized yet. Right. So those kind of changes need to get made. You need to flush in a few more global investors. But outside of that, like, we can do this.
Yeah.
It's interesting, like I don't care whether they're based in New Zealand or overseas. I guess like in the long-term game, right? If you can get 10 people who really win, that might generate the next generation 100 or 1,000 people to go to similar places.
Yeah, so we raised 2.1 mil. It's a small little fund. 80% of that fund, 70% of that fund is me, a bunch of the Canva OGs, and the Kami founder.
Yeah.
This is tech giving back into the economy, investing back in tech. It's a very unique industry in that perspective. If I'm not wrong, there are reports to say that people who do really well in tech, they don't pass on inheritance.
They
because
spend it, get rid of it.
Yeah, they're like, from a charity perspective, because the principle behind them doing this work was to build something useful.
Yeah.
So
to
there's
solve a problem.
Correct. So this whole cultural orientation around, I'm like, whatever resources I have, I'm here to like get a job done.
Yeah.
Not to become wealthy.
Yeah.
Right. So like the long tail of wealth in tech ends up like one-off and then investing straight back into productivity and growth.
Yeah. I mean, it gets me quite excited to hear you talk like this, but probably the other big thing to talk about is phase one isn't the only part of your plan, right? You've got other plans.
Yeah. So I ran for Parliament 2 years ago, which was a incredibly powerful thing. I campaigned. It's very powerful. It's very moving experience. It's a joy. The best part about that whole political landscape is listening to stories and believing and trusting that you can make a difference. I remember walking into a house, being invited and listening to a single mom who was a nurse with 3 kids. And one of the kids had unique disabilities. And you listen to the mom struggling to pay bills. And she's feeling a little bit unsafe on the street. And you're going, hey, how do we make this better? And actually having the opportunity to listen to them and at least at minimum making sure you feel heard. So I ran for Parliament 3 years ago and intend to put my hand up again. It's part of that broader story around making New Zealand an even happier place, those 2 goals. There's a lot of things that we need to address. As the Prime Minister says, we are in an incredibly enviable position. Systems work, reasonable education needs to keep improving. Things are kind of safe. We're connected to the Western world. Okay, what are we doing? But there are some big questions that we need to answer.
Yeah, and where does that motivation come from after the success you've had? A lot of people would go, because, I mean, from the outside looking in, I go, politics looks like a grind. Versus you could, go sit on a beach, go live your best life. Where does that motivation come from?
Yeah, look, when I was really young, I asked my father, hey, what's my point? Like, you made a call and my mom to have me. What's the logic here, right?
Deep.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fair question, you know? And my dad grumbled about asking stupid questions. And then, and then he said, your job is to leave the world better than I have. I was like, okay, that makes sense. I can do that. So I started one of the most powerful student clubs at the University of Auckland, still going today. Canva, and politics is the last piece, right?
Yeah.
So I've drafted a story for myself in regards to what leaving the world better looks like. I love New Zealand. I love New Zealand so much. I came here on my own when I was 14 from Singapore to Napier, which is a bit of a culture
That's
shock.
an adjustment.
in 1994.
Yeah.
With Napier boys. And New Zealand gave me the space to fail, falter, learn, grow, right? I love Queen Street. I love Auckland so much.
You got to be the only person that I've met that said I love Queen Street.
Man, it used to be so good.
It did.
It
Queen Street used to be a
so
spot.
good back in the day.
Make Queen Street great again.
Yeah. But I think that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
Also, when I was growing up, I used to go back to India quite often. And I saw kids who looked like me break rocks for a living, right? And still do. My mom made sure that I had a strong sense of gratitude in regards to whatever tough thing you're going through. There's a lot of people who are in a far worse off position. And I think, so I keep telling myself, hey, I owe it to whoever it is. Like if I was in that spot, I would hope someone who was better off than me
was living a good life.
Yeah, and get up and gets up and keeps going. Right?
Yeah. Awesome. Mahesh, I mean, this has been awesome
we
to hear
could do this
about.
for hours.
To hear your story. I'd be keen to wrap it up with, for those listeners out there who, is Mahesh when they were 20, or are those that are trying to build a better life for themselves, what advice would you give them?
First thing, you don't understand how powerful you are, right? You don't. There's so much you can achieve. Second thing, everything's going to be okay, right? Like I remember feeling so anxious, didn't have a penny to my name, living off, like I couldn't pay my MBA fees on time, all kinds of struggles. 3, try, in my opinion, go into spaces where you can grow and learn, especially when I reckon until you're 35, the biggest choice you make is go into spots that are going to challenge you, that are going to tax you, that are going to push you. Because after your late 30s, your early 40s, then you're really executing, right? But until then, go into spots where you're learning. And ask a lot of people for feedback. Like, try to be really open to grow and learn. I think that's about it. Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for your time. Thank you to Lighthouse for sponsoring this episode. Please subscribe, review, give us a like. We'll catch you next time.
Cheers.